So you've been using Copilot Cowork and you're loving it, but you're starting to realize that Cowork doesn't know anything about you, your processes, your standards, the way your team operates. Every time you start a task, you're starting from square one. Today, that changes. I'm going to show you how to build custom skills in Cowork. And by the end of this video, Cowork is going to work for your business, not just the average user. Now, if you're brand new to Copilot Cowork and have no idea what I'm talking about, I covered everything you need to know in a previous video, and you can find the link below, or you can select that and watch really an overview or a beginning to Copilot Cowork. For everyone else, you know what Cowork does, you've seen the power of it, and now you're ready to go deeper, and that's really where skills come into play. So let's talk about the problem we're solving with skills. Here's the reality with Cowork out of the box. It's smart. It plans tasks, it works across your Microsoft 365 apps, but it doesn't know your company. It doesn't know your standards, your templates, or how you structure your deliverables. So you get good output, but generic output. And if you're using this for real business work, good and generic isn't really good enough. You need Cowork producing output that reflects how your team actually operates. That's the problem that custom skills solves. So what are skills within inside of Cowork? A Cowork skill is a markdown file, specifically a file named skill.md, MD meaning markdown, that you drop inside of a specific folder in your OneDrive. When Cowork picks up a task that matches your skills description, it loads those instructions automatically and applies them to everything that it does within inside of that task. You can kind of think of it like training Cowork on your rules and your way of working without touching any settings or admin panels is a file that you have saved in OneDrive. Now, you can either manually create these files within inside of your OneDrive file structure, or you can actually have Cowork build the skills for you. The file itself has two parts. At the top, a name and a description wrapped in what's called a YAML front matter. That description is the most important part. It's how Cowork decides when to load your skill. Make it specific to the type of work you want to apply it to, and that way you'll ensure that whenever you're interacting with Cowork, it knows when to pull in that skill. So here's why this matters more than it might seem at first. Most people using AI tools are re-explaining their preferences on every single prompt. Use a professional tone, keep it concise, follow this format every single time. Using skills, you're able to eliminate that entirely. You define it once and Cowork applies it automatically, and your outputs are consistent across everything that you produce. That's not just a convenience for businesses, that's a quality control system built directly into your workflow. And all you have to do is call upon the skill whenever you're interacting with Cowork. Now, if you watched my beginner video, you probably realize that there's many skills that are already built into Cowork, but you can build your own, and that's what we're focused on in this session. You can create up to 50 custom skills, one that perhaps has a standard email format, one for project status updates, one for onboarding documents, one for client deliverables. You're essentially building a playbook that Cowork runs on your behalf, and that playbook gets more powerful for every skill that you add. Now, I want to show you a real example that I think a lot of you will be able to use immediately. We don't have to go create files in OneDrive like I've seen many do. You can actually use Cowork to build that from the ground up, and we're going to see that right now. So if we're interested in exploring skills, we can go into Cowork and go up to the prompt window on the very top. And if we want to learn more about skills, you can use the /, which is often what you see done with grounding capabilities within inside of Copilot. And we're going to type in the word /skill. And when we do that, it's going to prompt Cowork to give us an explanation of what skills are and the capabilities, as well as an overview, all within inside of the Cowork experience. So what Cowork tells us is we currently have no skills and our instruction file is empty. So we can create our own skills. Even asks us, it guides us here around how we can create our own skill. So we can create a skill around weekly training prep, customer renewal follow-up, or Power BI lesson outline generator. So it knows a little bit about what I do here at Pragmatic Works. And there's also something here around personal instructions. We'll visit personal instructions in another video, but let's actually see a little bit more about skills. Maybe we want to create a skill, or maybe we want to list our existing skills. Let's say if we want to manage skills, let's see what kind of things that we can do when we're working on managing and editing skills. All right, so it pops up here and tells us what kind of actions we can do. We can create a new skill, we can view built-in skills, or we can edit personal instructions, which again, instructions are different than skills. We'll talk about that in a future video. Let's start by viewing the built-in skills. So I'm going to select View Built-in Skills here and hit Submit. All right, so it starts to return back all of the built-in skills that we have available to us. We have skills around document creation in Word. We have Excel skills, PowerPoint skills, PDF skills, all kinds of deep research ones, and then a skill for skills, ones that tells us how to create, edit, test, and audit your own personal skills. All right, so we want to create our own personal skill. And so to do that, we're going to run a little bit of a prompt here. The prompt that I want to do is I want to create a skill called Pragmatic Works brand that it will force my company's branding guide to customer-facing content only, okay, using the attached branding guide. So I'm going to point it to a file that I have called Pragmatic Works guide, and it should find the branding guide that I saved in OneDrive not too long ago. Go. And so it's going to take that branding guide that we attached, and we should see that it actually creates a new skill for us based on what it derives from the branding guide. All right, so we'll give that a few moments to do its thing. Now, you'll occasionally be prompted here. In this case, we're asked about our brand colors, and it's found the approximate value of those colors, but it's not quite right. So I'm going to tell it that I'm going to provide or paste in the exact hex code. So I'll select Next. All right, and then let's see what else it asks us for. Enforcement mode. We could make it where it strictly enforces the branding guides until the violations are corrected, or we can make it more of an advisory thing. I'm going to go ahead and tell it that we want to, let's say, make it more of an advisory thing and just provide recommendations, and then hit Submit. All right, so now it's expecting me to paste in the exact hex codes that we're going to use for our colors. And so I'm going to go ahead and paste in. I have them handy right here. Here are my colors that I wanted to use. And then go ahead and fire away and send that in, because it did have slightly different hex codes that it found with its approximation versus what I actually had in the guide. Now, here is the draft for me to review of the new skill that it's creating. At the top is the YAML section. That's the description and kind of the name of the skill. And then below is the actual skill definition itself, which is all in markdown that has the clear definition of, in this case, my brand guide. All right, so I'll review this skill. And if it looks pretty good, I can see that it's prompting me on the bottom here to tell it to go ahead and write this in as is, or do I want to make any kind of adjustments? I'm going to go ahead and select as is. And you can see in addition here, the kind of trigger phrases that will kick off the brand guide. If the description, you'll find in the description itself, the information that's going to kick it off. So enforce the Pragmatic Works branding standards on customer facing content. And so it's looking for kind of key things that it finds within that section. All right, so if we fire this off and I say as is, looks like it's created a quality score for our skills to basically did an audit of our skill to see how it may flow and interact with the rest of our cowork interactions. And you can see how to trigger it. So you can ask naturally for any customer-facing content, draft a proposal for a client. It's going to trigger our guide. Build a sales deck on Power BI fundamentals. It's going to trigger our guide. Make this client email on brands. Those are all kinds of triggers that we can use to interact with Cowork. So by using those triggers, it will fire this off for us. The skill will be ran in the background. We can also actively tell it that we want to use the skill as well. So either we can use some of these natural language triggers that you're seeing here, or we can actually specifically say, run this skill. Now, as we mentioned earlier, whenever you create a skill, that skill shows up in your personal OneDrive folder. I'm going to bring this over to the correct screen here, and you'll see inside of my personal OneDrive, my documents folder, and the Cowork folder that I have a new folder that was created called Skills about a minute ago. And if I go inside of that folder, I can see all of the skills I have. Now, in this case, I have just a single skill, and you can see that one listed here called Pragmatic Works brand. And you can open that, and you'll see a single file in here called skill.md. Now, you may be able to actually edit that directly in the browser. Sometimes you can edit it in the browser like so. You could also download it and make changes to it there as well, and then you can re-upload it if you wanted to. But most browsers now, you can actually modify and edit markdown files directly within the browser. So pretty cool stuff here that we can actually see that file. We can make changes to it. We allowed Cowork to create the skill on its own, but if we wanted to make our own enhancements to the skill, we can go in and customize it here. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can have up to 50 skills that you create, custom ones of your own. Each time you create a new skill, it'll create another new folder within inside of the skills folder. And so each one will have your own own new skill folder added in here, and you can review them each individually if you'd like. We can also go back over to Cowork and we can ask to list our skills. So let's do actually a new query here, a new task, and we can do /skills again, and we can see exactly what kind of information was stored once we created that skill. So we're hoping to actually see the skill, the Pragmatic Works brand guide, show up here in the skills section now. And there it is. Here's the one skill that we have now created. You have one of 50 personal skills. Do you want to create another one or edit this one? You have the ability to do that. You can also run a quality audit on it. They did that for us automatically earlier, and we scored pretty high on that audit. So I think we're pretty happy with the one skill that we have created. Now, if we want to use this skill, we can do that by going back to our new task. And inside of our prompt window here, we can tell it that we want to refer to a specific file. And maybe we want to apply that skill. Let's say apply, and then point to the skill that we've created here. And we can find either the one that we created, or we can actually start to type it in here. I can type in Pragmatic Works brand, like so. And we can say, hey, I want to apply this skill to a particular file. So maybe I have a file, for instance, called Power BI. Let's look for files here. There it is, Power BI MCP presentation. So this is a presentation that I'm going to be doing on the Power BI MCP, and I want to make sure my particular skill is used on it. All right, let's try it out. Now you can see it's already working. If you see over on the right-hand side of our screen, the skills that are being used right now, there's one skill being used called the Pragmatic Works brand. And you can see that that one brand is now going to apply to our PowerPoint deck that I selected. So it's going to download the presentation. It's giving us a checklist of things it's going to do in the top right. Download your presentation or get the presentation, deliver the branded deck, and then apply any kind of Pragmatic Works branding, and then review the current branding that's been applied. All right, so looks like it's done. It didn't take too long, but you can see it's done a couple things. It did add another skill. It's now using the PowerPoint skill as well as the brand guide that we had. You now see two files, one input file, which is the one we started with, which by the way, looks like this. This is what I started with before we added it into Cowork, and I asked it to apply my branding to it. So then after that, it actually did apply our brand. And so we can actually open the file and see what the new version of it looks like with our brand guide now applied. So let's see how it did. So it's now using the proper Pragmatic Works colors. Looks good. Looks like it went throughout and kind of reformatted the entire deck based on the appropriate kinds of colors that it should use. It looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it, actually. So I can download that deck and I can start to use it. And then in the middle of our screen here, we can also look at what it did over time. So when I go to expand the applied brand to slides, I can see each of the different things that it did. It inspected all 13 slides. It verified the old colors were gone. And then it finally gave me a good summary at the end here. It had my brand check. The colors are now appropriate. It did that across all 13 slides. The font type has now been changed to more appropriate fonts for what we're doing. The logo is not embedded in this, so that's okay. No problem there. The voice, the existing copy is already direct, outcome focused, and active. So no rewrites needed there. And then it did also updates to ensure that it had the proper title for me. So very good. It also is going to ask me here, do I want to apply or add a logo and refresh the closing to point it to our new company address? I can do that if I wanted to. Let's go ahead and tell it to add the logo. All right, it took some time, but it finally came back with our branded deck. We can look at the deck here. We can hover above it even and kind of see a preview of it, or we can select it and we'll see that the Pragmatic Works logo has now been integrated where it wasn't previously. Looks pretty good. And we can see, I think it's integrated a couple places. It took quite a while to do that. I think on the final slide, it might be integrated there as well. Yeah, that took a long time just to get that simple integration. In this video, we talked about custom skills and how it may seem like a small feature until you realize how much time you'll be saving having to re-explain yourself to Cowork all the time. You build a skill once and Cowork handles the rest. Based on how you interact with Cowork, that skill is going to be triggered. You can either outright call on the skill like I did, or you can use certain trigger phrases that will bring upon that skill to be used. Now, if you want to learn more about Copilot Cowork and Microsoft Copilot features, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever new videos come out. We have new videos that come out every week. And drop a comment below and let us know what skill you're going to build first. I want to see what you're thinking about how you might be able to leverage and use skills like this. And don't forget, if you're interested in learning more about how we do training here at Pragmatic Works, we can teach you about Copilot, we can teach you about Copilot Cowork, and we can do it for your organization as well. Make sure you look at pragmaticworks.com where we can teach you more about us. Thanks a lot.